Hey, this is Cyrus Malaport with another SecCast video.
In this video, we're going to be going over insecure direct object references in the context of a Grails application. So OWASP has classified insecure direct object references as A4 on its list of top 10 vulnerabilities of 2013. And what insecure direct object references basically are a class of vulnerabilities where the permissions of the client aren't properly checked and the client is able to tweak parameters on their end to access data that they weren't meant to access.
Now these could be anything from URL parameters, arguments to a REST API, JSON, or simply requests protected by security through obscurity, so things that aren't documented. And merely not documenting something is not sufficient protection to secure from the user. The server or the backend must actually check the user's permissions to see if they're allowed to access the resources or not. This is usually used to retrieve data meant for higher privileged users, such as admins. It's not commonly used to retrieve information not meant for users at all, such as hash passwords or emails, but it could be used to see anything that an admin level user could see. So you have to take that into account when allowing admins to view all user information. They're often pretty easy to exploit, and they're one of the first things that's checked because they can often be checked directly from the browser without any external tools.
Now, insecure direct object referencing emphasizes the importance of using proper permissions validation and authorization at all levels of the application.
So not just once the user is logged in, you need to continually check on every resource that they access to make sure that they have the correct authorization and that authorization hasn't been tampered with by the user and is completely stored on the server. It's part of a broader class of vulnerability where the user or the client is given too much trust in the application, and where the server should be responsible for maintaining the state, the client's given some control and is able to manipulate it to attack the application. Now, as with most frameworks, Grails does provide some utilities to prevent these types of attacks, but the developer needs to make full use of them in order for the attacks to not be successful.
To show a demonstration of this type of attack, we're going to look at the Grails.nv project, which we recently open sourced on our GitHub.
Grails.nv provides a vulnerable jobs listing website with numerous built-in vulnerabilities and documentation on each one. It's a valuable utility for developers and those interested in security alike to see some of these issues in a real application context. So in this case, we're going to look at the user profile page. You can see different types of information, including my description, social security number, which is sensitive, and my user ID. So what would happen if we put the user ID in the URL? We can see that the site actually supports browsing to a profile by its URL. But if my social security number is indeed on this page, we wouldn't want other users to be able to see it if they came to my page. What happens if we try changing this ID? We're taken to another user's page. If this user had entered in their social security number, we'd be able to see it right now, which could cause all sorts of problems. It doesn't appear like the application natively allows you to see other people's pages, so this is definitely a security risk. If we take a look at the code used for the profile controller, we can see that the information for which profile to access is pulled directly from the URL parameters in use, rather than simply using the ID of the user in the session. It appears as though the developer wanted to implement viewing other profiles, but didn't actually finish it, leaving an open vulnerability in the system. So to fix this, we should use the user object in the session, session.user.id, instead of the parameter.id value, which will allow us to only view our current user page since the only ID we'll always get is that of our own. We should also update the Grails URL routes to prevent profile pages being past the ID on the URL to make sure this vulnerability is completely eradicated. Another way to fix this is to check if the user has an access level of 1 or above, which in Grails.nv means they're an admin, and then only allowing them to see other users' pages than their own. In this case, we address both cases of the insecure direct object access vulnerability. In the first case, we address the case where users are able to access other user profiles without being authenticated or having privileged access. In the second case, we allow those users only with privileged access to access other profiles. That way, no one is able to escalate their privileges and view other pages simply by changing a parameter in the URL.
I'm Cyrus Malakpour. This has been another episode of SecCasts. Thank you for watching.